Section 3. Here we have the first vocoder from the previous section isolated, the saw wave randomly oscillating in pitch, and the 4-note saw wave chords. One of the most important aspects of this piece is how the text both explains how the piece functions and itself generates the piece. While not exactly self-generating, which would require more complex systems of feedback between input and output than I have time to develop at this point in my life, the content, which I consider the text, generates the form, which I consider the temporal arrangement of sonic material. I put quotation marks around content and form because of the fraught history of the two terms and their somewhat problematic duality. While I predetermine the parameters of the carrier signals of the vocoders in this piece, the rhythm and amplitude of my voice reading this text set off randomized systems that shape the sound of the carriers. The most important way this happens is through a transient detector I created in the max patch. The average amplitudes of the modulator over 3 seconds, 300 milliseconds, and 100 milliseconds are compared, and whenever the amplitude exceeds that value, as long as there is at least 50 milliseconds between each occurrence, a bang is outputted, which is then used to trigger other events in the patch. In other words, this means ideally that every word and syllable will cause a bang to be outputted, causing events to correspond one-to-one with the rhythm of the text. As I'm sure you have noticed, I am speaking in a slow and somewhat exaggerated manner. By putting enough space between words and pronouncing them in a very proper way, I am helping the transient detector do what I want it to do. Notice how almost every change in the carrier signal corresponds with a syllable in the text. Of course, this is not always the case, as the design is only as good as my skills in Max MSP are, which are admittedly rudimentary at best. But generally, the desired effect is achieved. Before my voice enters the vocoder, I am applying an audio gate to the signal with fast attack and decay times in order to filter out unwanted noise. I then am subtly compressing the output of the gate so the amplitude of the signal entering the vocoder is more consistent. Another way I am helping the transient detector do its job. The carrier signals in this vocoder will return again in the piece, at which time I will talk about them in more detail.